Namaskar. So, today I have a little treat for you. I want to read a letter that Guruji Paramahansa Yoganandaji sent out to the students in 1934. But before I share this letter, I want to set the stage a little bit. So, as you may be aware, this coming week on Thursday, it is Thanksgiving holiday in America. So in America, the last Thursday of November, it's like a harvest festival. You know, when the Pilgrims came to America and they had that first winter and they sat down with the Indians before they went to war, and they had a nice harvest a meal together. It's really too bad that tradition didn't sort of stick of people getting along. And this has become a big holiday in America. It's one of the biggest holidays of the year. And it's the time when the family comes. The family comes from across the country for Thanksgiving dinner. And there's a number of traditions. This is social. This is not a spiritual holiday. It's a social holiday. And so each family has the things that they associate with Thanksgiving. And but most of them are around the Thanksgiving meal. And of course, turkey. Turkey is what you serve on Thanksgiving. I know on the different holidays here, there's certain foods that go with that holiday. And for Thanksgiving in America, it's turkey. Because most Americans are not vegetarian. Shocking as that may seem. And so I grew up, before I became a vegetarian, I grew up with this tradition. And cooking a turkey takes a long time. I mean, it's a big, long process. And I'm sure everybody has a family recipe, or many people do. But then, of course, some people just go out and buy ready-made. And some people do very elaborate things to the turkey. One of them is called deep frying the turkey, where you put the turkey into boiling oil. And every year, they explode and people, end up at the hospital. But I've heard it's quite a good way to eat turkeys. But it's supposed to be Thanksgiving. Now, just the title should tell you about the purpose of the day. And yet, in America, Thanksgiving has been a holiday of indulgence. And the amount of time that you give thanks, if at all, is very short. So sometimes, people will sit at the table and say, I give thanks for this, I give thanks for that. And usually it's, pretty shallow. It's not deep stuff. And then, of course, they eat more than they should. And then they drink more than they should. And then they argue more than they should. And it's a big, in some homes it's a beautiful time with your family, but it's not truly a day of Thanksgiving in most homes. So of course, Yoganandaji, his purpose was to bring spirit into everything. So on this Thanksgiving in 1934, he wrote a letter to the congregation. And if I can find my glasses in here, and I can make my modern day book work. Okay, so this was letter to students and friends in the Interculture magazine that came out monthly, 1934. Every day should be a day of thanksgiving for all the gifts of life, sunshine, water, the luscious fruits and greens which we receive as indirect gifts from the great giver. He makes us work so that we may consciously and thankfully deserve to receive his gifts. The all-sufficient one does not need the benefit of our thankful hearts. But when we are grateful to the fountain of all gifts, our attention is concentrated for our own highest benefit upon the only great source of all supply. He alone can unfailingly, undeceivingly bestow upon us the lasting gifts of wisdom, abundance, and spiritual treasures without the confinement of any mundane measure. There are millions of people today who are drunk with egotism, who think that they keep themselves alive because they feed themselves with their self-earned magic gold of delusion. They never stop to think that man can neither make a grain of wheat nor a leaf of green, nor the illusory glittering yellow gold, nor the paper and ink of which greenbacks are made. Greenbacks money. Neither can he create first life independently of God, the life that gives power to the precious green papers. For these people, Thanksgiving Day, although soiled with the blood of unthankful turkeys, I can't believe he said that, is a great day of awakening. It is a day of thinking of the most important and most forgotten molder of our destiny. Millions of people who eat turkey forget to thank God at all and think more of the turkey than of God. But many of you could thank God in meditation more consciously while munching on the meat of peace than dipping your lips in the gravy and the flavor camouflaged flesh of turkey, where once sensitiveness guarded the throne of life. He's being pretty rough on the turkey eaters there, which I have to say I enjoyed that he did that. If you eat turkey, be sure to stuff it with the bliss-spicing dressing of thankful remembrance of God and his highest gifts of wisdom, peace, and power to accomplishment. And thank God that you are not the turkey to be used for the festivity of Thanksgiving. Anyway, don't mind my sympathy for the turkey, for I'm more sympathetic toward you, who are superior to the turkey. God is waiting to hear your unceasing knock of devotion, so he can open the gates of omnipresence to receive you. Whether you eat turkey or not does not matter if you will only knock hard with devotion on the doors of your heart. Make every day a day of thanksgiving, and continuous contentment will sparkle in your body, mind, and soul. Be sure to search for the all-freeing God from now on until you find him on the brink of unceasing seeking. So, Master had a sense of humor, but he could also be quite direct. Quite clearly, he was saying a lot of actually quite important things about what we need to do in order to recognize the proper spirit of thankfulness, really. Thankfulness isn't something that you can do for 1 minute a year. It's not something that you can do just one time. It's a way of living. And yes, we can make a day that celebrates that way of living, but let us not think that, how many people, disasters at their door, suddenly they want to pray. They haven't prayed all year, but suddenly when disaster, when difficulty arrives, I think I'll pray. And then they wonder, well, why hasn't God responded to my prayer? What's wrong? Is his ear plugged? Is not listening properly? Because my prayers are the most important prayers. Even if he's busy with prayers from other people, it doesn't matter. This thing is just, it doesn't stay on. I need the pin. Okay, that's better. So this state of mind that we want to live in is ongoing. He says, unceasing knocking. Always seeking God. Always seeking God. Always, if you're a child and you can't find your mother, you keep looking around. You don't stop, especially if you're hungry. We need to be hungry for God. We need to not give up the search. We need to make it the most important part of our life. But what happens when we get caught in ego consciousness is we think that this is more important than God. But we are mistaken in the thinking that we can't bring God into whatever it is that we're doing. We think that if we want to give our attention to God, that we can't do anything else. We need to shift, and yes, of course, it's true that you should spend some time only with God. But we also need to bring God into everything that we do. And the way that we do that is a shifting in the way that we consider what is actually taking place in life. And as Master says in the beginning of the letter, is that when we think who is doing what, who am I thinking? What can any person actually accomplish in life? Nothing. We can't do anything. But God does things through us. God gives us the power to do all of the things that we think we are doing. So we thank ourselves. Oh, well, thank you, I just cooked dinner. Thank you, I just did this. Thank you, I just did that. But we didn't do it. We can't, as he said, make a grain of wheat. We can't do that. We can't animate life. We can't even think our own thoughts. Our thoughts come from God. Nothing, the body comes from God. The world comes from God. The whole creation is God's. And it's a complete delusion to think that we are ever separate from God, or that we as individuals do anything. God does everything through us. But if we don't realize that truth, if we're not one with that larger truth, then God can only do smaller things through us, limited things through us. And if we get really confused, God will hurt others through us. God will do very limiting, selfish things through us. If we want to experience joy in life, we need joy to flow through our lives. We shouldn't think that joy comes from eating a good meal. Joy doesn't come from others saying, thank you for what you've done for me. Joy doesn't, those aren't bad things in themselves, but if you lose your vision of what's truly happening, then you suffer. So we suffer unnecessarily when we think that God is not present. And we limit our ability to experience that presence when we think, I am the doer. I, this body personality, am doing it. Yes, we use this body personality as a tool, but the energizing force is God. So now, instead of thinking that God is only in the meditation room, we realize that God is everywhere. I mean, we know that by definition God is everywhere. So now we begin to see God living through us and interacting with us in the world around us. And in that process, when we live in the love and the joy and the peace of God, thankfulness is a natural expression. Contentment, the supreme quality of the soul. When you live in that consciousness, you can be nothing but part of its nature. I mean, if you were to try to describe contentment, you'd have to say that part of the nature of contentment is thankfulness. It's another way of saying the same thing. We need to enter into that consciousness all the time. But not just when things go our way. It's easy to say, well, thank you, Lord, I got a new car. Thank you, Lord, I just got a new job. I got a raise at work. Thank you, Lord, the produce was good at the market today. That's good. Do that. But are we also going to say, thank you, Lord, I got fired? Thank you, Lord, I just got in a car accident. Thank you, Lord, my relative died. Can you thank God in those darkest moments of your life and say, I may not understand why this moment is a gift, but my life experience, my faith, tells me that if it comes from you, it is a gift. This is not an easy thing to embrace if we're used to living in, I like it and I don't like it, and thinking that is the way to determine well-being. We need to learn to realize that every life experience, well, think of it this way. If you went to purchase an expensive item and you had the money to purchase it, you'd be thankful for that, right? And you'd give it willingly. You might go, oh, I hate to give that much money away. But you would willingly give it, wouldn't you? Because you're paying for an expensive item. Well, this is karma. Sometimes we have items from our past that are expensive. And it takes a lot of energy to pay the bill. It could be ill health, it could be any disaster. And sometimes we get caught up in the disasters of others. Yoganandaji said that cataclysms, world problems, are mass karma. They're created by the karma of humanity, not just individuals. So, stories of people who survive accidents when everybody else didn't. Why did they survive? It's because their karma was strong enough to counterbalance this larger karma. But if you look at any large disaster, there might be people who it wasn't their karma so much to die, that their karma to live wasn't strong enough, so they got swept in. You see, the landscape of the life of the evolution of the soul is so much bigger than one incarnation. So we think that the whole game is one life, but the larger picture is that occasionally difficult things happen to good people. Okay, can we be thankful for that? Can we see this larger picture? When you see your child and they stumble, they bruise their knee, you realize that this is part of the learning process. They got to get up and keep walking. You don't want to teach them to complain every time something goes bad and to whine. No, we need to. I think the British used to say, "Take it on the chin." Just stiff up our lip. Nothing gets you down. But that's there's a positive side to that point of view. I would just say, smile when you take it on the chin. Don't be so stiff. Recognize that no matter how difficult life becomes, it is a drama. It is a story. It is God's Leela, God's play. And God is the greatest movie maker of all time. The greatest cinema creator. You know, that nobody does it better than God. And it's so good that we really get caught up in it. And we think that we have become the characters that we're playing. We even need to thank God for our delusion. We need to thank God for everything, because we have been given an opportunity to participate in God's drama. And you know, when kids do drama in school, they get all excited. I'm really excited to go. I want to be in the play. I'm playing a tree, or I'm playing a bear, or some character, you know. But the whole thing changes when they get up on the stage and everybody's looking at them. And suddenly they were all happy to be the character before they got up on the stage. Even in the rehearsal, it was no problem. But as soon as they get up on the stage, it's like, well, as Shakespeare said, all of life is a stage. And sometimes we get up in our lives, in the stage of our lives, and we get, oh no, I was not prepared for that. And in that moment, whether it be a big moment or a little moment, that moment when you realize that you have become discontent with the plate that's being served, whatever that experience may be, and in that moment, when you see disaster at your door, say thank you first. Say thank you. Say thank you for the plate that doesn't have what you want it to be on it. Thank you for the relative that drives me a little crazy. Thank you for the difficulties in my life. And of course, thank you for the friendships and those positive experiences that I have. I grew up actually in a Jewish family, and we were so non-practicing. Orthodox Jews don't eat ham, but we would eat ham and turkey. They're big, you know. My parents were not religious in any way, but they were, you know, they wanted the family to come, and we had these big, huge meals. But I didn't feel that kind of warm feeling. When I came to Ananda and experienced Thanksgiving with Swami Kriyananda and the Ananda family, my first Thanksgiving was at the old meditation retreat. We had a dome, which we called the Common Dome, and this is where we would eat our meals. And even then, the community was quite spread out, but everybody would come up to the old retreat for Thanksgiving. We'd have a service, and then we would have a meal. And in the very early years, it was always Indian food. Any banquet we had was Indian food. But over time, it became a little bit more Americanized. But the most sacred tradition for me was after the meal, when Swamiji would speak. And he would speak about Thanksgiving with Master. And he would embrace us in this Gurubhai family feeling. And we begin to feel like Master was present, because he was there, and he spoke of things that he himself had experienced. And we began to, all of our past experience of Thanksgiving melt away. None of them had any power over us anymore. We were completely hypnotized in the most positive way. And we would just enter into this appreciation for God's presence in our lives. And through the coloration of the stories that Swamiji would tell, Master loved to cook. for the devotees, and he would actually cook fake meat. And he actually developed some of these soy products, and they were quite realistic looking. And Master just had fun. He just had fun with everything that he did. He had that joyful, creative, a little occasionally mischievous, but underneath all of this lighthearted, embracing family, the true family, your spiritual family, was this vista of God's presence that would open up, and like a sprinkling of peace and well-being that would just come into your soul, and all of your problems would leave. When I was a young man, I used to go surfing out on the water in the ocean, riding waves. And when I was out on the ocean, you kind of bob up and down, and you're just sitting, floating there, waiting for the waves to come. And it was like all of my problems were gone. But it was sort of like it was a relief. In other words, it was a relief. I'm not carrying these problems. But being with Swamiji took it to a whole nother level. It wasn't only that I had no problems. There was this infusion of God presence, which is thankfulness, love, embracing. And this is the thing that people don't get about the spiritual life. It's not just about a reward that you get when you die. It's about experiencing in this life, in this place, the incredible blessing of God's presence in your being. That you can consciously be in the presence of God. And that presence is not an old man with a lightning bolt, so you better behave yourself. But it is the Divine Mother. It's the love and that embracing nature. It's your own parent, your own self. And it's so dynamically, indescribably, overwhelmingly beautiful and nurturing to the soul. So underneath every life experience, and it's just easier to see when you're in the family, when you're with loved ones that bring this consciousness to the top of the mind. But it's always present if we will have the eyes and the heart to attune ourselves to it. So just as we in America have taken on Indian food, I encourage you to remember this consciousness of Thanksgiving. And even though in America we don't do it well as a country, there are certainly many people who do it beautifully. And it's never more beautiful than when it's your spiritual family. And the more we live in that, the more we allow God to feed us the bliss, the most nourishing meal of all, the bliss. Allow ourselves to live in that bliss all the time. Give thanks. Give thanks for every life experience and recognize that God is the essential presence in every life experience. And that remember that the Guru's presence in our lives is that guiding force for our own understanding and freedom. So when we have challenges in life, when you've created this Guru discipleship bond, the Guru is with you. The Guru is oh, how you doing? And occasionally, in many unseen ways, the Guru is sweeping the path so that you don't get a thorn, or putting a thorn in the path so you can learn a lesson. Could go either way. But the Guru is there. And what is at the end of that path? Infinite bliss, freedom, oneness with God. Let us give thanks.